Hey everyone, welcome to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. In the Mobile User Acquisition Show, we talk about how to use mobile user acquisition strategies to grow your app quickly and capital efficiently. The Mobile User Acquisition Show is presented by me, Shamant Rao, mobile growth leader and founder and CEO of the mobile growth consulting firm Rocketship HQ. Each episode includes strategies, tips, and pointers from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition that you can use to unlock tremendous growth for your app in a sustainable and capital efficient manner. Our guest today is Erich Detert, Senior Performance Marketing Manager at InnoGames. Copy is often overlooked because of the great focus on visual creators, and therefore it can often be a missed opportunity for marketers to connect with and persuade potential users. In today's conversation, Erich underlines the critical importance of ad copy in performance marketing and shares his observations of how his experiments have impacted key metrics and lead to more qualified users and stronger ROAS for products. I'm very excited to welcome Erich Detert to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. Erich, welcome to the show.
Hi, Shamant. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, thrilled to have you because you certainly come very highly recommended. And also because you proposed that we talk about something that's very underappreciated in performance marketing. I'm thrilled to dive into the importance of ad copy, which is oftentimes underrated and underappreciated by the vast majority of marketers. So we could start at the beginning, of course. So what inspired you to start testing ad copy, and why did you think this was important at the time?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of got my start actually in the marketing profession, primarily focusing on content marketing. And since working as a marketing professional, I've had a deep interest in the psychology of advertising, as well as consumer behavior in general. However, I'd say the use of language as a tool to persuade and convince goes back even further for me during my time as a legal professional. I would say that I've heard it expressed on numerous occasions that ad copy didn't really matter much. And while I do agree that a marketing asset itself, like a still image or video, is the most important aspect of an advertisement, I was convinced that a good ad copy would be like the cherry on top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you say ad copy, what might be the different types of ad copy that are available for a marketer to test? What might be some examples of these?
Sure. So for me, I've essentially broken down the types of ad copy that I use into three types. Clicky, which I think everybody would kind of know what clicky ad type would be. Representative, which would be like on the opposite end of the spectrum. And balanced ad copy, which would be like a mix of the two, as balance would suggest. So I can share a few examples for ad copy which I've used for our company's most renowned game. A clicky ad copy, for instance, would be, try this game for 3 minutes and see why everyone is hooked. Or the must-play game of the year. So those are clicky ad copies that I would use. Representative ad copies would include something like journey through the ages in this award-winning city building game. So this is often one that I use for the game that I advertise for. And finally, a balance, so a good mix for the two. One of the ones I use most often is the must-play city building game of the year.
Right. So it's I think one of it is almost urgent. You could call it sensational. One of those is more matter of
Yeah,
fact and that's more balanced. Right.
exactly.
And you would think that the most sensational one is obviously going to win, but sounds like that's not always the case.
Yeah,
So can you tell us what are the typical results you would see from each of these?
sure, definitely. So I've run a lot of tests, most of them with regards to still images, and I've done multiple ad copy tests where the corresponding marketing asset that was used was either slightly ambiguous with regards to what the product actually is, and also using ones where it was much easier to infer from the image as to what the main USP of the product is. So
Hmm.
from what I've seen is that with balanced ad copy, for me, it has really been a good middle ground, as you would assume,
Sure.
in terms of click-through rate, conversion rate, and lead quality. Um, Ad copy that is often more clicky has shown higher CTRs for us, average to lower CVRs, and less engaged users and early churners. But most notably, I've seen up to about 20% higher CTRs for clicky text, like in relation to text that is more representative. So this is quite astonishing, actually. You
Hmm.
wouldn't actually think maybe that sometimes the clicky ad copy would perform so well, but it does. If you're, especially if your CTR is important for you.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, so and finally, with ad copy that is more representative of the product, we do tend to see lower CTRs, however, higher CVRs and higher engagement rates post conversion, as these leads generated are more or less pre-qualified leads for us.
Right.
With yeah, so with regards to conversion rates, I've seen at least 10% higher conversion rates compared to the more clicky ad text, and as well as a positive
Hmm.
correlation with more engaged and higher value users. Um,
Yeah.
I'd also say that we've even had cases where people would positively comment on our advertisements, especially on Facebook, that the
Yeah.
ad copy was very spot on when representative of the product.
Yeah.
So I feel that the representative text also has the advantage of appealing to a lot of the disaffected viewers who often see misleading ads, which have been more and more prevalent these days.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that all three of those could work in different situations, right?
exactly.
And the results you get can very much vary by product or the way you're executing and implementing each of these strategies, right? That's very
Yeah.
interesting.
And I was actually also, yeah, yeah. I was actually also just recently thinking about the implementation of iOS 14 coming up and how this would be affecting like campaigns. And honestly, I was thinking how high quality representative ad copy actually could be even more important now,
Yeah.
as it can help like kind of combat some of the uncertainty around surrounding some of the optimization efforts. Um,
Yeah.
for instance, if you have uh, to focus more budgets on mobile app install campaigns and move some of your budget away from app event optimization and value op campaigns, which it seems
Hmm.
like a lot of marketers might have to do with the implementation of iOS 14.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And uh, the other aspect of ad copy that I'm very curious about is the length itself. How do you think that makes a difference?
So the short answer, I guess, would be that from my experience, the more wordy the text, the lower the click-through rates and the higher the cost per acquisition.
Mhm.
So for instance, like on Facebook, your ad text will get truncated if it's longer than 3 lines of text in the feed.
Yeah.
But I still see some advertisers doing this. I mean, I understand the reasoning. Obviously, the more you can explain about your product, the better it is in order to convince someone. But I feel like there has to be a balance. So for example, one of the longer ad texts that I use is like 18 words long, but it has one of the lowest click-through rates. And we generally see significantly higher CPAs, like upwards of 30% more. But we do see good ROAS with these ads as well, because again, these text is kind of like a pre-qualifier for us. I would also say that for the matter of mobile acquisition, there's often an app behind the advertisement. So your ad can often be seen more about getting the customer intrigued and in the door, and the app store is kind of like where the final sale makes place. So it can also be quite important to have an alignment or an affinity between your ads and the app store descriptions or landing pages if you want to increase your conversion rate.
Yeah. And which also suggests that just the top of funnel metrics aren't always the only metrics to look at, because like you said, an ad text might be longer, but it's longer because it needs to qualify the right kinds of users that will convert downstream.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And with these trade-offs among the different kinds of copy that you could use, let's just say a company is in their relatively early stages of their acquisition. They don't have a lot of volumes. Is there a specific way you would recommend that they think about this, or a specific strategy you recommend for them?
I mean, it's a very good question. Honestly, I would test as many variations of ad text as possible to see what works best for you and what your business goals are ultimately. I mean, for myself, I've definitely tested over 100 different ad copy variations and iterations to find what works best. So you certainly aren't limited to anything specific. But I would also say that it's even more important to invest in good ad copy for startup companies looking to grow their user base, for instance, because they don't often have the budgets for large-scale video ad productions. Instead, almost exclusively using still images. So when this is the case, and because I've seen ad copy make more of an impact with images than it does with videos, this is what I would recommend focusing on. But just generally, I would say clicky copy, will help you generate more awareness for your product, drive more traffic, whereas representative copy will help you deliver more on the pre-qualified leads.
Sure. And how important is ad copy for video as compared to display or image ads?
Another great question. So ad copy with video ads, in my experience, hasn't shown as significant of a difference as it has with still images, unfortunately. So in tests that I've run, I've seen up to about a maximum of 5% higher click-through rates using more clicky language, and around around less than 5% higher conversion rates when using more product representative, but still persuasive language. One very interesting thing, though, that I noticed, however, is that I saw an increase in click-through rates, conversion rates, and leads per thousands of impressions of up to 6% for each respective KPI when using shorter ad text length with videos. So essentially text length under 10 words.
So it's almost like with a video, you want the user to pay attention to the video. So the less distraction you have with the text, the better it is.
Yeah, essentially.
Interesting. Yeah. And speaking of videos, the thumbnails of the videos obviously matter, and you could add text on top of the thumbnails. Do you find that to be an important factor in any manner?
Another great question, because yeah, thumbnails definitely have shown importance from my experience. They clearly provide thumb stopping ability, and could probably be the discussion for another entire podcast episode for you, I'm sure. So from the limited testing that I've done, which hasn't been statistically significant anyway, unfortunately, but I did see some trends. I saw ad copy having low single-digit percentage differences in relation to one another with regards to the ad copy. I would say the more interesting data was really the click-through rates related to the different thumbnails. Again, showing how significant they really can be.
Right. Yeah, certainly, right? Because that is the first impression a user does get, the thumbnail itself. So certainly it's understandable as to what sort of impact it can have. And what channels would you say the ad copy is the most important of a variable in?
In my opinion, ad copy matters in all channels you may be using, be it paid social, search, or native ad networks. I would say often as marketers, especially in medium to large size companies, we don't have full control over the creative assets that are produced for the marketing channels. So ad copy can certainly be a campaign manager's creative outlet. So basically it's your opportunity to be creative. So embrace it, put effort into it, and have some fun with it. And whatever your marketing goal may be, I would say that using text that builds a sense of urgency or that elicits an emotional response definitely should be the focal point.
Certainly. And I think that's so critical because oftentimes, especially since a lot of marketers look at videos and display ads and images, right? The actual communication, the messaging tends to take a back seat, but it's ever so critical in driving significant improvements to creatives. Erich, this has been very insightful. And as I said, this is something that not a lot of people think about, but it's an absolutely critical variable for every marketer to test. Thank you for sharing all of your insight today. This is perhaps a good place for us to start to wrap. But before we do that, can you tell folks how they can find out more about you and everything you do?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I work at InnoGames, located in beautiful Hamburg, Germany. We are Germany's leading developer and publisher of mobile and online games. You can find me personally on LinkedIn, where I'm more than happy to discuss further the importance of ad copy and marketing campaign optimization and strategy in general.
Wonderful. We will link to all of that in the show notes. And of course, we'll have detailed notes just as well. For now, Erich, this is a great place for us to wrap. Thank you so much for being on the Mobile User Acquisition Show.
Shamat, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. Thanks again.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. If any of this was helpful or instructive, I would love for you to leave us a review or rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcast fix. This podcast takes a ton of time, effort, and love to produce, and I deeply value every review and every piece of feedback that you share. Thank you for listening, and I will look forward to sharing our next episode soon.